we can share with others who maybe aren't able to attend, or for reference for those of you who are here, if you wanted to go back to any part of the presentation, you can do so at any time. So we'll go ahead and share those with people that are registered for attending, and possibly even put it on the website at some point in the future. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, so basically what we're going to talk about today is just a broad overview of how to prepare for the on-campus career fair. This is definitely an important topic to talk about, especially with a lot of you potentially having not been in a lot of in-person professional events for the past few years, especially with the pandemic happening. So we have a lot of tips and tricks of things that you can do to help yourself to feel more comfortable going into this experience, especially if it's a brand new experience for you. So broad overview of what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to talk about showing up and how that is important, and some background details that you want to do before you even get to the fair. Then we're going to talk about some ways that you can engage and connect with employers when you're at the fair. And then we're also going to talk about some things that you should do after the career fair, including like follow up with employers, follow up with yourself, and get into some more details about that. All of the advice that we will be giving, by the way, are applicable for any career field. So, we'll have some time at the end to talk about specific questions. And, if you had some more specific industry-specific questions, you can always feel free to reach out to Casey or myself about some things that might be specific to your industry. So first step, showing up, which is definitely a part of the battle. So what it involves, what it takes to show up to the career fair, and what you need to prepare for before you even get there. So first thing I would recommend everybody do is do your research. There is a list of companies that we have attending the career fair online. I think we have 40 employers in total that are going to be at the fair. So if you wanted to, before you get to the fair, you should definitely try to go through a list of the companies that you would want to meet, and also what the companies are about. And that will help you to develop thoughtful questions that will help you to have an engaging conversation with employers when you get to the fair.
Alexis, real quick, that list of companies that will be at the fair, you can find it in the Handshake event.
For the career fair.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so that's definitely a list, a place to look for the list. And perhaps, Casey, could you also link that in the chat for people if they wanted to go and find that? That would be helpful. Thank you. So yeah, so some thoughtful questions also might include like what specifically interested you about the company that you're going up to and asking questions about. As obviously something might have caught your eye about something from their personal company page, something that they listed as a part of their description under the career fair, their overall company mission. Maybe it's a well-known company. So talking about like why you wanted to be there, why you wanted to meet with them in the first place is definitely important. And there's a bunch of other thoughtful questions as well that you can think of, to, introduce yourself, make yourself stand out. So really do some research about the company and develop some thoughtful questions to ask them, because you're kind of in the driver's seat for the interactions that you're going to be having during the career fair. So second step would then also be preparing your resume and cover letter. So you should definitely bring lots of printed copies of your resume and or cover letter. You should try to bring them in a portfolio or in a folder if you don't have a portfolio, to keep them, not wrinkled and neat, and also to have them easily accessible for when you approach a table. So that way you can, just approach with your open extended hand and then have that copy of your resume ready to hand to them for review, and for them to have to keep a nice clean copy of your resume. If you have a few companies that you're interested in applying for specifically, it could also be helpful to bring a copy of a cover letter that is tailored for those specific companies. And when I say to tailor the cover letter to those companies, you definitely want to make sure that you're being specific. It's not just a general dear hiring manager type of letter. You want to talk specifically about that company, why you're interested in it, some more. That way, when they walk away from the table and they walk away from the fair, they also have that tidbit of information that will remind them of the conversation that you have. And then you also want to practice your professional introduction or your elevator pitch. So, how are you going to go about expressing your name, your primary career goals and, why are you interested in a job in whatever industry that it is you're looking for, whether that be a finance company or for a tech company or for some biopharmaceutical company. You want to talk about like why you got into that interest and, a brief background about yourself as well, your major, et cetera. So thinking about that, you want to try to keep it down to like a 30-second little pitch. That's why it's called an elevator pitch, because it's supposed to be something that you could tell somebody during the course of an elevator ride. So when you're thinking about what you would like to say, keep it succinct, but try to make sure that it summarizes yourself well and your experience as well.
Alexis, if I could just add one comment about the elevator pitch. It should, in addition to everything that Alexis just said, it should help the person you're talking to understand why you are talking to them. Obviously, it's a career fair. Everyone's there looking for jobs and looking to learn more about opportunities. But they're representing a specific company with specific types of jobs. So when you step up and you start talking to them, that elevator pitch should help place you kind of as a potential candidate for that firm. So it should express your interest in a career in software engineering, or you're interested in a career in consulting or economic consulting or healthcare. So that should be one of as you're thinking about that and practicing it with your friends, family, whomever.
In a mirror.
In a mirror, yep. That's one way to think about it.
Definitely. I 100% agree with all of that. And yes, we'll definitely field questions about that as well if people have some at the end. Just wanted to make sure that I noted that as well. So yeah, next thing we wanted to talk about was dress code. First thing we wanted to highlight is that there is business professional attire available to borrow from Career Education. If you go on the Career Education website and you search suits, you can see that we have suits for rental. However, if you're even just looking for a piece of a suit, like a blazer or a nice pair of dress pants, you can definitely come by, and we have a wide range of sizes available for people to try on and hopefully find something that fits comfortably, which is what we'll talk about next. So when we're talking about business professional dress, you want to make sure that you're presenting yourself in a pleasant, professional way. And we'll give some examples of some attire that would be recommended to, encourage that professional viewpoint of yourself. But then you also at the same time want to be comfortable. Thinking about this whole situation, you're going into something where you're not super comfortable, emotionally. You're probably going to be nervous, maybe a little sweaty. So you want to try to dress in a way that's going to help yourself to be more comfortable. So that way, at least if you're nervous, you're not also then, having pants on that are too tight, or wearing that one shirt that doesn't fit super well, or wearing shoes that you can't stand for a long time in because they're really uncomfortable to stand in. So those are things you want to think about. So yes, like I mentioned, too tight or too loose clothing can be uncomfortable, and you want to think about your shoe choice, especially if you're thinking about wearing heels or another type of uncomfortable shoe. You want to think about not, if you want to wear them, you need to be prepared to wear them for a decent period of time without being too fidgety or, look like you're uncomfortable. But then on the opposite side, you also then want to dress to impress. So you want to think about your cleanliness. Is there a stain on your shirt? Is it really wrinkled? And, does it have a smell because maybe it's something you pull out of the laundry bin? So those are things that you want to think about to make sure that you are keeping yourself clean. Same thing goes with your hands, like, wash your hands before you go. Make sure that you're like not looking your best as well. If your hair is undone and, looks kind of messy, you want to try to look your best and put your best foot forward. You can also express yourself with signature pieces. So if there is jewelry that you prefer to wear, watches, cufflinks, anything, ties that mean something to you or that can help you to stand out in a crowd. You definitely want to express yourself with those pieces, as it'll also help you to feel a little bit more comfortable in that situation, and it can become a topic point of conversation if let's say that you have a funky tie but that matches really nicely with your outfit. It might be something that an employer might bring up in conversation that can lead to some organic conversations that can help you feel relaxed. A tasteful bag might help. Everybody might want to consider bringing a bag with a few pieces that you might want to have on you. For example, water, mints, chapstick, especially if you decide to wear a dress and the dress does not have pockets. Bringing a bag that is, not like a torn up gin bag would not be ideal, but if you have like a small purse or like a clutch or something, or a briefcase, or even the right kind of backpack could be helpful, to have those things on you so you can take little breathers for yourself between talking to employers.
Alexis,
And it's also,
could I jump in real
of
quick
course,
with one
yeah.
kind of comment related to bringing a bag? Some people might be thinking, oh, well, that's overkill. It's a career fair. I'm going to go in and I'm going to be done and I'm going to leave. And that may be true if there's just one employer you're trying to connect with and you only want to talk to them, and it could end up being you could have a great conversation that's 20 minutes long and you're done. And that could be a successful career fair for you. But if you've gone through the list of employers and you said, oh, there's 5 companies I really want to introduce myself to, and then there's another 5 that I wouldn't mind talking to, each of those could turn into 10, 15, 20-minute conversations, and all of a sudden it's over an hour. So that supports Alexis's point to bring some supplies to get you through it, but also is a good reminder to plan your time accordingly. So if you have a class that starts at 4:30, maybe you want to get there right when the career fair starts at 3, and give yourself enough time to take advantage of the opportunity.
Exactly, definitely. And also, if you're not, if you're considering not bringing a bag, you should try to make sure that whatever outfit that you choose to wear has pockets, so you have a place to put your phone away. Because that's not a good look if you're like glancing at your phone every few minutes in the middle of a conversation. It looks like you're not interested in talking to the other person. So a few ideas for outfits that I have here. So like these are a few examples of outfits that you could wear with pants. As you can see, the first 2 people are wearing flat shoes, which is, again, something I would recommend. I mean, unless you have a really comfortable pair of heels that you wanted to wear, feel free to do so. Or, if there's a pair of ballet flats or something maybe that you have that is also comfortable for you to wear, you can consider those as well. But all of their outfits aren't too tight, too loose, but they make them feel comfortable, but they still have that professional look to them, with a pair of dress pants, a blazer, a jacket, and like well-fitting clothing. And all of them obviously have like clean hands, well-kept hair, etc. So those are all things to consider. And then here are a few more examples or ideas of professional dress that can go outside of the normal realm of fashion, normal fashion, and can kind of like go a little bit more out there. And also some examples of dresses that you might want to consider. Hold on, sorry, just give me 1 second.
And as Alexis mentioned earlier, there's items available to borrow in career ed. So if you have any questions about that, you can email Alexis or I, or you could just swing by career ed. They're in one of our offices, but you could just check in at the front desk and see where they were.
Sorry, I had locked something that needed to be unlocked, and I needed to give the passcode to my boyfriend who was in the other room. But anyways, everything is all set now, but thank you, Casey. But yes, so if you're considering wearing dresses, again, you want to make sure that they fit well, that they're an appropriate length, and also are something that you feel comfortable in. If you don't feel comfortable wearing dresses, you don't have to wear one, and that's perfectly okay. So yeah, so the next aspect that we'll talk about a little bit more, and I'll hand this over to Casey. He's going to talk more about engaging and connecting portion once you're at the fair.
Yeah, thanks, Alexis. Well, now that you've done all your prep work, your hands are nice and clean. You got your outfit picked out, you got your bag, and you got your schedule blocked for the career fair, and you have your priority list of companies that you want to engage with. Now we're going to talk a little bit about actually how you conduct yourself once you're at the career fair. So I think I think everybody or most people have heard the adage that is, showing up is 50% or showing up is 75%. And that's definitely true. And making it a priority to be at the career fair is a huge part of prioritizing your career. But really maximizing your opportunity with all of these employers in one place that could be potential matches for you. The real kind of maximization of that opportunity is engaging with the individuals that have come all this way to our campus. So I don't want you to think of it as going to the career fair is the goal. The goal should be making a meaningful connection with somebody from an employer, either a recruiter or a Wellesley alum or one of the analysts that they sent. That's really the goal, is to make a connection with somebody that you could then talk to about a potential job. So Alexis, if we go to the next slide, you should really kind of have the mindset of making the most of this opportunity. And for some people, that's going to be natural. That's going to be, you walk into the room, you know what you're doing, you have the confidence to walk up to a stranger and just start talking. For others, that's going to be very unnatural. So, and that's okay. And you can have the mindset that this is me coming out of my comfort zone in order to make the most of this opportunity. So the employers will be standing at tables with their logos on a table or on a flag or something like that. And it's up to you to walk up to them. There might be a line that forms at one of the more popular employers, and you're welcome to wait in line for your turn to talk to somebody, but you could also use that as an opportunity to engage with somebody from a different company that you don't know. Kind of a pro tip, if you are one of those people that has a little bit of trouble engaging and a little bit more of an introvert, go up to a company that you don't care about at all, that you've never heard of, that is in an industry that you would never even consider, and just have a chat with them, introduce themselves. It's almost like a training for the company that you're about to go talk to and that you really want to impress. It might get the jitters out, just give you a little practice doing your elevator pitch, who knows, but I've tried that before and it's worked well. As Alexis mentioned, put away your phone. You're going to hear us talk about that a lot. It is really a kind of a finite opportunity, and walking around with your phone or having your phone out while you're having a conversation can kind of send the wrong signal. Like Alexis mentioned, once you do get introduced to somebody, have that elevator pitch ready to go. Elevator pitch is a pretty common term in networking, so you can Google it pretty easily to find some good examples, but generally it's your name, your class year, your major. If you're coming off of an internship, you could mention the internship that you did over the summer, or an experience that you had over the summer, and your role in that internship, and then how you want to build on that for your next internship or for your career after Wellesley for a full-time job. So it's not much more complicated than that, but like we said earlier, it really places you in the conversation with this individual and helps them say, oh, well, tell me more about that internship, or, oh, tell me more about your major in neuroscience. It gives them an opening to ask some questions. Like Alexis mentioned, have questions of your own that you really want answers to. And I think that's key. There's questions that you could find answers to on the website about the business or their clients or their products or their philosophy or their mission. Ask questions that you want to know the answers to, especially of the analysts or kind of younger professionals that are there representing the company. Asking questions about what it's really like to work there are not bad questions. It's not over the line. It's really you taking advantage of the opportunity to learn what it's like to work at a global banking institution as a young professional. You know, what's the day-to-day like? Who do you collaborate with? So really focus on those questions when you are back in your dorm room, back in your apartment, thinking, what's going to help me make a decision about where I apply? And then lastly, you have a good conversation, you've made a connection, ask for a business card or a way to follow up, and then ask them if you are, if they encourage you to leave your resume behind. This career fairs in general in person are not a resume collection venue. You're not walking around to tables saying, here's my resume, thank you, call me when you can. The leaving of the resume is really kind of a result of having a nice conversation with one of the representatives of the company. And you should certainly ask, but it is not something that you lead with or hand over right off the bat.
Definitely. And also asking for a business card is also not, on the same train. You shouldn't just go over and say hi and give your elevator pitch and then say, can I get a business card immediately? You kind of want to have an engaging conversation first before you ask for that as well.
Absolutely. And so the business cards, the resume, that kind of leads us into our following up stage of the career fair. So you've gone to the career fair, you've connected with 7 interesting companies, you collected 14 business cards, you had some great conversations, your feet are really tired because you didn't wear comfortable shoes like Alexis recommended you do, but you're still glad you went. And now you have 14 business cards and what do I do now? Thank you emails are a must for the people that you've met with. A really great tip is when you get back to, once you leave the career fair, if you can remember something from the conversations you had, write that on the back of the business card that you have. That helps you write a thank you email to them that is personalized and thoughtful, which does go a long way. People remember stuff like that. It helps kind of further the connections that you're making. Of course, ask follow-up questions, ask about employment opportunities if that's a company or an entity that you're interested in working at. So that's kind of the outward facing follow-up to do. And I would say do those thank you emails within, if you can, within 24 hours. Worst case scenario, 48 hours, which is probably a challenge because life kind of gets out of hand very quickly, especially at the beginning of the semester. There's a lot going on, but it really helps kind of keep that relationship going that you've made. And don't disregard personal reflection. How did I do at the career fair? What did I learn? What went well? What didn't go well? Did I spark interest in something that I didn't expect to? Did I put myself out there? Did I take a risk? Can I pat myself on the back for going out into this career fair? A lot of this is a first time experience for a lot of you, and it's not a given that it's an easy thing for everybody. So take a minute to say, what did I learn? What did I do well? What am I proud of? And last but not least, make an appointment with Alexis or myself or anyone in career ed to either ask us, what do I do now? Or, hey, I'm really excited about XYZ. What do I do about that? And then we're off to the races. So that is kind of the pitch that we have for preparing for the career fair. Everybody does their preparation in their own way. So this isn't like a kind of game plan. It's more tips, reminders. Everyone, you do you, and everyone play their own game. But remember that this is in person, slightly different, a little bit of a new experience. So don't discount that newness as you're approaching it. Maybe be a little more thoughtful than it would be if it was a virtual session, which pretty much everything has been for the last couple of years. So on the screen now, Career, what's the QR code for,
The
Alexis?
QR code will also take you to the career fair on Handshake. There is also the link in the chat that Casey had shared. In case you hadn't registered yet for the event and wanted to register, feel free to do so there, and also take a look at, like you mentioned, the different companies that are going to be in attendance, so you can do some research, because there's 40 of them and that's a lot. So definitely take the time to go through those. But I think at this point, we can open it up to you all for questions, if there were any. You can either put them in the chat or unmute, and share any thoughts or questions you might have about the career fair.
Looks like we got a hand up from Addie.
Yeah, hi. I know you give like I guess a couple examples of questions to ask, kind of like what does a typical day, look like in the position. But could you maybe give some more insight into like what types of questions are appropriate, what aren't? Is like asking about the application process or open positions typical, like what they look for in candidates, or should it be more sort of about the company and like the industry, I guess?
Alexis, I can give my 2 cents and then definitely weigh in. I think there's asking about the application process, asking about the types of opportunities that are available is certainly inbounds. I think doing your research ahead of time will spark more questions, or is a good source to generate questions that you want to ask and you want to know the answers to. I think generally my approach is, if I just start right away with what's the application process like and more of the logistics type questions, that to me it's harder to then translate to pivot from that into a conversation that helps me connect with somebody. And because some of these like application logistics questions you can answer via email to the campus recruiting or whomever, that I would put as kind of a secondary priority. The kind of first order priority is, for me, would be learning what it would be like to work at that company. What kinds of candidates are really successful? What kind of skills are they looking for their junior analyst program or their junior to senior year internship program? What kind of departments and professionals will I have the opportunity to connect with in this role? I think that those questions about your experience, kind of expecting to get the job, are a more fruitful, more kind of give the interviewer the opportunity to talk about, or not the interviewer, the company representative. It gives them the opportunity to kind of talk a lot about how much they love the company and what kind of people they're recruiting. And it is more open-ended than, what's the interview deadline or what's the application deadline. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. Thank you.
I would also definitely agree. And this is like a general rule as well. I think starting your job search from the perspective of what your needs are and like what you are going to need from a future potential employer, and the same thing goes for internships as well, can help to formulate those kinds of questions. So if you're thinking about like, oh, even if it's like, oh, I know this company is based in a certain region, you can ask questions about that region if you're not familiar, if you've never been there, but, perhaps you're super interested because you've been looking to move to, I don't know, Milwaukee, for example, and, because maybe you're closer to family or something, and can ask them some questions about like, what is it like to live in that area, or what is, the culture like with the people at, employees. Like my favorite question to ask was, is there something that your team does for fun, or that the company does to celebrate momentous occasions? And that's usually a very fruitful question in terms of having that like kind of organic conversation and getting a better feel for, what people are like there and what the company culture is like there. I believe we have a few questions in the chat.
Yep, I was just responding to Sophia, who asked a great question. Is there a best time to approach reps at the fair? Is there a difference between going early or towards the end of the fair? As I mentioned, the 3 to 6 p.m., all the employers are setting up to be there and available from 3 to 6 p.m. So they will be there. I would just say if there's a particular 1, 2, or 3 employers that you really don't want to miss, I wouldn't leave it until 5:45 to show up, because they might have 10 people waiting in line, and then all of a sudden you're having to make a decision about, do I go to my activity or my class or my meeting that I have, or wait to meet this employer? And you don't want to have to make that decision. So
Great, definitely.
it's like Indira has a question.
Yeah, I've never been to a career fair before, and I was wondering, how is like the elevator pitch the first thing you say when you meet an employer? Is
Yeah.
that okay?
So usually, the elevator pitch is a great way to introduce yourself to employers, because you start with, hi, my name is Indira, and I'm a blank class at Wellesley, and I'm, studying blank, and I'm very interested in your company because, and then you give a little spiel, or you can even say, I'm very interested in opportunities to, work in blank industry, or to, work as a, looking for opportunities in blank kind of internships, or whatever it is that you're looking for. So usually your 30-second elevator pitch is a great introduction, because it's you taking charge and, being confident and kind of taking command of the way the conversation is going to go. And then it also lets, the company know right out the gate, what you are, who you are, what your goals are, and, what you're hoping to get out of the interaction with them as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think practicing the elevator pitch is critical. I know it kind of sounds silly because it's a very short couple of sentences and it's things about yourself already, but you're going to walk up to someone at the career fair and they're going to say something slightly different than what you expected. Like they might say, "Oh, Indira, look at that suit you're wearing. It looks fantastic." Or, "Indira, can you believe it's raining so much today? This is crazy." And you're going to kind of, if you're just walking up expecting to just say your speech right off the bat, you're going to get a little bit rattled. So if you practice it a lot and it comes naturally, you can kind of respond to those kind of small talk type questions or small talk like interactions, and then you'll be able to sense in the moment. And then that person might say, "Oh, well, Indira, tell me a little bit about yourself." That's when you can say, "Oh, well, I'm a first-year student. I'm interested in XYZ." So it is practice is would highly recommend practice.
And are there any other questions?
Did we mention that you should all put your phones away? Should we mention that, Alexis, or did we forget?
Yes, please put your phones away. highly recommend. It will make you look way more professional and engaged if you're not staring at your phone the entire time. But I mean, feel free, if you walk away from a booth and you don't have a pen, to write a few notes in your phone about whatever conversation you just had, if you wanted to use that as an opportunity for follow-up emails as well. But as you're approaching other booths, put the phone away again. So I see we have another question.
Yeah, hi. First off, thank you so much. This was incredibly helpful. I just had a question about the follow-up part after the career fair. I know you mentioned that emails are a good way to sort of, remind the recruiter of your conversation and just stay in touch. But I was wondering how, where, because I know that some people have said that once you send that email and they send you an email back, you should either keep them updated on your progress or keep them posted on, I guess, what you decide to do if you decide to apply to the company. So I was wondering what the etiquette is for that and how we should approach something like that.
I think that's a great question. So I would say that if you're for thinking about the initial follow-up, it's usually going to be within 24 to 48 hours after the fair. If you have had time to apply for a position, like let's say that during the conversation you discussed a certain role, and that role sounded particularly interesting to you, so you went home and you applied that night after the fair, and then you wanted to follow up with the recruiter, whoever was at the company representative at the booth. That is definitely something that you could include. Hey, I really enjoyed our conversation the other day. I just wanted to let you know that I did end up applying for that role that you recommended. I'm looking forward to hearing back, and please let me know if there's any other materials I can send along to help with the process, or if they're a hiring manager, for example. But you kind of have to tailor the follow-up to the type of person that you spoke to as well. So that's why it's helpful to collect business cards where applicable, so if that person is just a recruiter, they might not be the person reviewing your resume, or perhaps they are. So thinking about those different aspects as you're writing your follow-up can be helpful. Does that help answer your question, or was there a second part to it?
No, I think that helps. Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course.
So while we're waiting, Sophia asked a question in the chat about, is there a certain number of companies we should try to visit and talk to? And we encourage you to look at the list and see what looks interesting. This is an opportunity to talk to companies that are in your areas of interest, but also maybe outside of your area of interest, and maybe something that you thought wasn't available to you, or not something you could do with your career. So look at all of the companies, treat them all as kind of potential employers, but keep in mind that talking to all 40 of them is probably not reasonable. So you do have to make some decisions about how do you want to spend your time and optimize the experience.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But also, sorry, I did want to add a quick note, sorry, and then I'll get to your question, that, talking to companies outside of your comfort zone can also be helpful beyond breaking that ice and breaking that tension, because, they might have an opportunity available that you don't even know about that actually relates to your career field, or, relates to a certain skill set that you have. So, it can also be helpful to, if you have the time, to talk to 1 or 2 companies outside of your area, just to see what else is out there. If it looks interesting online, why not stop by and chat about, broad career things, or, things that might be relevant or interesting to you. And I can go ahead and take your question if you wanted to unmute.
So if I already applied to some of these companies, should I mention it during the conversation?
Yeah, so I think that's fair to mention in conversation for sure. You can let them know about the position that you applied for, and perhaps it can have that connection if it is a hiring manager, or perhaps that person had screened your application. And if they hadn't, maybe it'll bring it up on your radar. They had a really great conversation with you. You talked a lot about your skill set. It's aligning with what the company is looking for. That could be an in terms of getting you to that interview stage. So yeah, I think that's fair.
We have a question in the chat about does Career Ed have professional shoes students can borrow? And Alexis, I'm not sure the answer to that. Do you know?
I am not 100% sure. And this is definitely something that maybe I can take a note of and follow up with you, Indira. But as far, the closet sits right across from my office, and I've only ever seen clothing, never shoes there. But I think that could be a health concern with people sharing shoes. But I can definitely double check and follow up with you, Indira, by email. Were there any other questions?
Anyone have anything that they're nervous about, that they're willing to share, or concerned, or kind of anyone think they have just the dumbest question that's ever existed? but it's probably not actually that dumb of a question, and everybody is probably thinking it themselves. This is, I want to say it again, and I think Alexis and I both have said this. It is okay and normal for this to be a foreign experience for people, especially first year sophomores and juniors, where we have not had in-person career fairs. So asking questions is expected. We have a really great group of employers coming, and they're really excited to engage with our students, but I can also understand how that can feel like a pretty pressure-packed and nerve-wracking experience. So Alexis and myself are available to chat or to send us an email if you have questions that you're not comfortable asking here. We have, I think I definitely have appointment blocks available on Monday, but even if those are all filled up, feel free to send an email anytime over the weekend. It is, it should be a fun event, and it should be exciting. And I think a lot of the folks who go will get a lot out of it, but it is, I can see how it can kind of, the anticipation can build. So we have a couple.
Have a few in the chat, yes, about cover letters. So going back to that that conversation, so if you're considering bringing a cover letter to the career fair, I would only recommend bringing them specifically for companies that you've done research into, if you're interested in specific roles that they have posted. And a way that you can talk about that, let's say that it comes up organically in conversation. For example, if somebody had mentioned, what if you had already applied for a position? So let's say that you are, or if you're already interested in a very specific position, you want to go up there and ask that specific kind of question and say, hey, I found this role online. I was very interested in it. And, the recruiter might say, oh, well, here's some information about that role. I know the people that work a part of that team. Here are some more details about it. And then you can say, oh, well, I've actually got a copy of my resume and a cover letter. Is it possible to hand it to you now? Or is there a better way for me to go about submitting these application materials? And some of them might recommend you just submit online, but it might be helpful for them to also then have a copy on hand. So that would be the recommendation with bringing a cover letter, is only if you have like a specific company that you're interested in, to kind of bridge that gap right out the gate, and possibly get yourself into an interview position if they are, the hiring manager is the person that's at the booth. And then regarding the conversation about like addressing the company in a cover letter, I think that broadly speaking, if you're able to find the name of the person who is hiring you to the team, use that person's name. That will definitely show that you've done your research. Like, for example, when I applied for this job, I was able to find that the director of career education is Jen Pollard. So I addressed my cover letter to her. And I think that obviously, it helps you to stand out. It lets people know that you've done your research and that you know a little bit about the company and a little bit about the team that you're interested in. But if you're unable to find a specific person that might be in charge of your team, or if you're even just not sure because there's a bunch of different names and titles listed and you're not sure what they mean, I think that, a dear hiring manager or to whom it may concern is definitely okay to use.
And then regarding the other question from Jin, do employers typically look for juniors to recruit? Do a lot of sophomores attend the career fairs? So employers are absolutely looking for juniors to recruit for the junior to senior year internship. That's often an internship that will, at the end of that experience, result in a full-time offer for employment after graduation. And a lot of employers use it as a feeder system for their junior analyst classes that they of graduating seniors. That being said, a lot of companies are looking for sophomores for they're open to the exploratory nature of career exploration, and invite juniors and underclassmen to participate as interns in the hopes that they come back and learn a little bit about the industry and the company. So I would encourage, Alexis and I would both encourage sophomores to attend the career fair, to identify opportunities, but also to learn about companies. This is as much a job getting opportunity as it is an education about what's out there, what kind of jobs are opportunities are being advertised, what kind of companies are interested in Wellesley students.
And that can be a part of your 30-second elevator pitch as well, where you mention what you're looking for as a sophomore. Are you looking to just go and explore career opportunities in your industry, or are you looking for an internship? And, you can say, I'm looking for an internship, but I'm also interested in exploring careers in my industry. And that can be a part of your elevator pitch. So companies can expect, if they have an internship, sometimes they have sophomore or freshman, more broad internships that they have available for career exploration at that specific company. So, I wouldn't shirk yourself away from approaching a company just because you're not looking for a full-time job, because there could be other opportunities there for you. Any other questions from people? Thoughts, concerns they wanted to share?
I think these are all great questions, by the way. These are all pretty kind of unique to how career fairs work, so I appreciate them. Looks like we got another one from Josephine.
Hi, is it appropriate to bring a notebook to take notes on to refer back to after the conversation? And if so, is it really only appropriate to take notes post conversation with an employer?
Yeah.
Yeah, Alexis, I'm curious what you think. I'm going to give my opinion. But I think taking notes. Oh, go ahead.
I'll go for it. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, my thought is that, bringing a notebook is definitely okay but I would definitely say that when you're having a conversation with an employer, I would try to focus more on engaging with the employer. And then perhaps just like I mentioned about taking your phone out after the conversation to write notes, you can always write those down in a regular notepad as well. But I think that if you're writing notes while the person is talking, unless they mention something specific, like, oh, I forgot my business cards, I can write down my contact information for you. Then you can hand over, your notebook or write down whatever contact information that they're giving you. But besides that, I would try to, make it more as organic of a conversation as possible. Rather than, it be like the person is lecturing you and you're writing notes furiously while they're talking. That was my thought.
Completely agree. And if we go back to what everybody's goal for attending the career fair, I think one of their goals should be is connecting with someone. It's harder to connect if you're taking notes about what they're saying, and it's easier to connect if you're making eye contact, listening to their explanation and building your question off of that explanation and really getting a conversation going. And it's no matter how good you are taking notes, it's really hard to key in on things they're saying and then ask relevant questions while you're also taking notes. So I 100% agree with Alexis. Maybe that's part of your strategy. You build in a little extra time after you've had a conversation, before you go to your next employer, you take a step aside, make a couple notes so you don't forget, and then move on.
We also had a question in the chat from Sarah about handshakes, which is an excellent question in these COVID I guess it's still COVID times. We're not really out of it yet. We're just kind of existing with it. So I would say that if you are a person who enjoys shaking hands, that it's always polite to ask first. You can come approach the person, introduce yourself like, hi, my name is Alexis. Is it okay if I shake your hand, or would you prefer if we didn't do that? And, just go based on what the other person is feeling comfortable with. But if you're not feeling comfortable shaking hands as well, don't be afraid to offer them like a polite elbow tap instead, or, just say, oh, I really prefer not to shake hands because everybody's going to understand if you prefer not to shake hands, because we all just went through the same global pandemic, and hopefully all have a similar understanding of, basic health practices and whatnot. And even if your hands have been washed and clean, like I mentioned, you still want to respect other people's boundaries and make sure that if somebody else is not, you're not making somebody else feel uncomfortable. Any other questions?
Yeah, it looks like we have about 5 minutes left, and we are here for those 5 minutes if people have questions. And like I mentioned, Alexis and I are available. Please send us an email if you have a question that comes up after, or make an appointment for Monday. Or I think I know I have some availability Tuesday leading up to. So this is what we do. And I've said this to a lot of people recently. If you don't make appointments to talk to us, we don't have shit to do. So please don't be strangers, and don't think that your questions are bad questions or stupid questions. It's all part of this process, and we're happy to talk about it with you all.
Yeah, we haven't had a stupid question yet, so
No.
I think anything that you can think of is probably a very relevant topic. So I see we're losing a few. We'll hang out for like another minute or so.
Mm-hmm.
Going once.
Somebody asked in a direct message how the recording was going to be shared, and I'm not exactly sure, but I assume it will be emailed out sometime over the next 24 hours. So stay tuned for that.
I will also check to see if there's somewhere on the website maybe that we could share this recording for students to review if they weren't able to attend today.
Mm-hmm. And I think we've
exhausted the question list.
Yeah, we've taken up enough of everyone's time.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much again for coming tonight, and for all of your fabulous questions. They were really, truly insightful questions that will be helpful for, I'm sure, the rest of the group. And like Casey mentioned, we've got appointments available in career education, both in person and virtual. So if you were interested in asking some more questions or something more specific about your industry, feel free to sign up for a one-on-one advising appointment with either myself, Casey, or if we're not available during a time that's convenient for you, you can also reach out to any of the career advisors, the ACE advisors as well. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice. That went well.
Yeah, I thought so.
You stopping the recording?
We'll do that. I can figure out how to do it.